There are rooms inside Windsor Castle where the royal family goes when they absolutely do not want anyone to know what's being said. No aides. No secretaries. No recording devices. Nothing written down. Nothing that could ever be leaked. Those rooms exist for one reason. So that what gets said inside them stays inside them. But on one particular day, in one of those rooms, the silence wasn't just broken. It was shattered. William arrived first. He placed a single document on the table. One piece of paper. That's all it took. Then he waited. When Charles walked through that door and saw what his son was holding, the color drained from his face. Instantly. Completely. Not the slow dawning of realization. Recognition. Pure, unfiltered recognition. He knew what that paper was without reading a single word. He had spent years ensuring it would never see the light of day. Now it was sitting in front of him. In the hands of his own son. The one person he had most needed to keep it from. What happened next was not a shouting match. No door slamming. No explosion. William's voice never rose above conversational. He wasn't there to argue. The argument was already over. And Charles couldn't deny it. Couldn't explain it away. Couldn't pretend it didn't matter. So he said almost nothing at all. And in that silence, heavy and absolute, he confirmed every last word of it. But here's what nobody outside those palace walls understands yet. This wasn't just about a document. This wasn't just about Camilla. This was about something much bigger. Something William had been building with cold, patient precision for years. A deliberate campaign to remove Camilla's family from the working core of the monarchy. And the document was just the final piece. Stay with me, because this story goes much deeper than the headlines. None of what happened in that room makes sense unless you understand what William had already put in place. He had been building something for months. A slow, deliberate, methodical campaign against Camilla's family. People consistently underestimate William. Not the anger. Not the grief. Not the loyalty to his mother. The patience. The specific, almost architectural patience of a man who decided long ago that when the moment came, he would act from position. Not emotion. He would make absolutely certain that by the time anyone understood what he was doing, it would already be done. The foundation was laid the moment Charles became king. Control of the Duchy of Cornwall passed to William. Tens of millions of pounds each year in income. Every lever of it landed in William's hands. One of the first things he did was decline to renew the contract held by Annabel Elliot, Camilla's younger sister. She had been embedded in the royal operation for nearly 2 decades, working as an interior designer across duchy properties. But everyone inside the palace knew the truth. Annabel had come to that role because her sister married the man who controlled the estate. It had never been competitive. It had never been advertised. It was family extended into the machinery of the crown. William waited for the duchy to publish its routine annual accounts. The dry financial document almost nobody ever reads. When those accounts appeared, Annabel Elliot's name was gone. No statement. No letter. No meeting. No explanation. Nearly 2 decades of royal employment ended without a single public word spoken about it. To the outside world? Ordinary administrative tidying. Inside the palace? A very precise and very deliberate signal. It was the first cut. And it had been aimed with intention. What followed moved in the same quiet, deniable register. Guest lists restructured. Access to crown occasions feeling less reliable. Nothing that generated a headline on its own. Nothing anyone could formally object to. But all of it building steadily. The first moment that told the full story happened at a grand charity gala. The kind of evening the monarchy stages to Project Unity. Camilla had quietly worked to secure an invitation for her son Tom Parker Bowles. She involved Charles directly. She was confident her husband could bring William around. The request had been placed through the right channels. William declined. Calmly. Finally. Without leaving any room for the conversation to be reopened. When the evening arrived, Tom's name was not on the guest list. Then came the moment people still talk about. Tom arrived alongside his mother's party and attempted to enter with the group. Security turned him away at the gate, operating on instructions that carried no ambiguity whatsoever. Quietly. Without drama. But in full view of enough people that the story moved immediately through palace circles. Inside, Camilla had to perform. Smile where a smile was required. Greet the people she was expected to greet. But those who saw her closely described something beneath the surface. Her hands were trembling. For the first time in a very long time, she looked less like a queen and more like a mother who had just watched her child be turned away from a door she believed she had finally, permanently opened. To understand how that document ended up on a table inside Windsor, you have to understand the man who carried it there. Andrew Parker Bowles is not a bitter man. He never has been. For decades, he handled one of the most publicly humiliating situations imaginable with quiet dignity. He stepped aside. He kept his silence. He never sold a story. Never granted a tell-all interview. Never used what he knew as a weapon. Not against Charles. Not against Camilla. Not against the institution. He had every reason to speak. The access. The knowledge. More than enough provocation. Year after year, he chose not to. That history is not a footnote. It is the entire point. A man with that record of silence does not suddenly break it without a reason that has grown too heavy to carry. Something in him had shifted. He is an older man now. So is Charles. So is Camilla. A particular version of events was calcifying into official history. Documentaries. Biographies. Respectful profiles. A portrait he knew from the inside to be incomplete. He could not stop that version from being written. But he could make sure the one person with both the standing and the motive to resist it was given what he needed before it became permanent. So he passed the document to the future king. And William walked out carrying something that would permanently reframe everything he thought he understood. People assumed the document revealed something about Camilla herself. Something from her past. In one sense, that assumption is not entirely wrong. But it misses the part that actually mattered. William had made an exhausted peace with Camilla's history long before that meeting. He had processed who she was. What she had been. The role she played during the most painful years of his childhood. He had found a way to function alongside her. To shake her hand. To support her elevation. To wear the diplomatic mask. What the document did was not tear open that old wound. It revealed something far more specific. Far more irreversible. It revealed that Charles had known. Not suspected. Not half understood. Known. Clearly. Completely. From the beginning. And it revealed that Charles had made a choice. Deliberately. Repeatedly. Year after year. He had chosen to protect that knowledge rather than let it surface. He had carried it through every family dinner. Every state occasion. Every quiet private moment. He had stood beside William at funerals and coronations and weddings. Smiled in family photographs. With that secret held carefully out of sight the entire time. That is what broke something open in William. Not what Camilla had done. What his father had chosen to do with the knowledge of it. The betrayal was not Camilla's. It was Charles's. Once William understood that, the decision resolved itself into something simple. Clean. Entirely beyond negotiation. He picked up the document. He carried it to Windsor. And he sat down to wait for his father to walk through the door. Camilla learned what happened the way she had learned about every other move in this slow, patient campaign against her. Second hand. After the fact. Through a channel never intended to reach her ears at all. And the reaction was not what you might expect. No immediate fury. No sharp, defensive anger. What people around her described instead was something much quieter. A stillness that settled over her like a weight she had not been prepared to carry. The particular stillness of someone who has just understood, all at once, that the situation they are standing inside is fundamentally different from anything that has come before it. Because Camilla is not a naive woman. She never has been. She spent decades finding her footing inside a family that actively did not want her there. Survived a level of public contempt that would have broken almost anyone else. She learned to read every room, every silence, every barely perceptible shift. She had watched the campaign against her family build, piece by careful piece. She had seen the pattern forming. She had understood what it was building toward. But this was different. This was not another deniable administrative decision that could be absorbed and waited out. This was something that reached all the way back into the very foundation of her story. Something that no title, no public rehabilitation, and no amount of time could neutralize once it was out in the open. And worse than that? The two people whose protection her entire position quietly depended upon had just been split apart on the subject of her. Her husband and the son who would one day hold all the real power in the family. Divided irreconcilably. With her standing alone in the widening space between them. Charles, for his part, kept his public schedule in the days that followed. That is what a lifetime of royal training produces. The ability to smile where a smile is required. To shake the hands. To say the right things. Regardless of what is happening underneath the surface. But those who worked closest to him described a quality that had not been there before. A heaviness. The specific, unmistakable heaviness of a man who has not simply lost an argument, but who has lost something quieter and far more permanent. The ability to pretend. For a man who has spent his entire life managing appearances, that particular loss may have been the heavier of the two. Neither of them fully understood yet, in those first raw days, how far back the real beginning of all of this actually went. Or who had set it in motion, and here is my honest take on all of this. We spend so much time watching this royal family through the lens of drama and scandal and succession politics. We analyze the gestures. We decode the body language. We treat them like characters in a show. But what happened in that room at Windsor reminds us of something we forget. Behind the titles and the palaces and the centuries of tradition, there is a son who has been carrying something heavy for longer than anyone knows. And a father who made choices. Year after year. Choices that protected someone else at the expense of the truth. William didn't act from anger. He didn't explode. He didn't storm in demanding answers. He walked in with a document. Sat down. And waited. Because he understood something his father had forgotten. The truth has a way of finding its way to the surface. No matter how carefully you try to bury it. And when it does, even kings cannot stop it. Subscribe to the Meghan Markle Report for more royal stories you won't hear anywhere else. Drop your thoughts below. Who was really betrayed in this story? I read every single comment. See you in the next one.